first episode of the MaPro and Oulie podcast. My name is, of course, MaPro. I'm joined by Oulie. Hello, Oulie.
Good day, MaPro.
And today we're here doing our very first episode of this podcast. I have done podcasts before. I know that Oulie listens to some. I don't know if you already did some before, Oulie, but...
No, I've never done one before. I mean, I listen to different podcasts, certainly esports and sports mostly. Also some other different things, more political, but won't get into that. But I've never made podcasts myself, so this is the first episode for me completely.
No, right. Very, very first time for Oulie to be in a podcast as part of it. I have done some in the past. Has been around 1 year ago where I did my last one. I've been podcasting on and off since 2012 actually. Came back a little bit 2018, but on other topics, and now we're here talking about Counter-Strike, talking about esports in general, and also some other normal regular sports like football and something like that, and maybe some other topics. Whatever we want to talk about. That is why the podcast doesn't have like a super specific name. That's why it's called MaPro and Oulie podcast, because it's simple. It's MaPro and Oulie talking to microphones. So yeah, we kind of...
It could literally be anything, anywhere, anytime.
We kind of gave ourselves that space so we can talk about whatever we want. But of course, we made some ideas before, so we don't go clueless into the first episode. And we want to inform you, of course, who we are. Mainly Counter-Strike, the game Counter-Strike Global Offensive, of course. Video game has been very influential on how we met each other. And therefore, this will be probably 99% of this podcast about the game, about our story behind it, about how we met, and in general, all the steps we had made together when we didn't play together anymore, and eventually how we ended up playing again together. So this is kind of the things we want to talk about in this podcast today. I'm gonna give the microphone to Oulie because at first we introduce ourselves, and I don't want to be rude, so I let Oulie start first. Give the viewers and listeners some information about yourself, maybe personal, maybe Counter-Strike related, whatever you feel like sharing.
Well, obviously, I guess we'll start with a little bit of background on myself, because it would make sense to me. Because you wouldn't go into a conversation without knowing any, or like completely anything about anyone. So, but I'm Oulie, I'm Dutch. My real name is, of course, not Oulie, but we'll pretend it is. And I am, at the moment of speaking in today, 5th of January 23, I am 20 years old. And my birthday is the 6th of March. I've been playing Counter-Strike since 2016, if I remember correctly, which I sometimes don't, but I'll pretend I do know. But 2016 was the first time I played. It was more matchmaking, you know, kind of simple, kind of basic Counter-Strike. I did follow esports back then. I've been following CS esports specifically since 2013, 2014. With, in this case, if I can slowly kick it off, like a football match, where the first ball always goes back. I watched Dupree a lot, Device, and that's really where my love for Counter-Strike started.
All right, sounds awesome. What are your personal hobbies besides Counter-Strike? What do you like to do on your free time?
Well, I'm a football referee, or soccer if you're American, because we gotta be all inclusive, am I right? We gotta be child friendly, and we gotta be American friendly.
Probably.
So
I mean, it's 2023, so you have to be whatever you can be, I guess.
You have to pretend you're a good person. So no, soccer / football referee. I follow any sports, as said before. I am really into cycling recently. And that is the main focus. I work in construction building in the office. Well, I do go to construction sites here and there, but mostly office working with helping people with their problems in their new found houses.
All right.
And
all
yourself.
Right. Sounds good. Yeah, thank you for that short introduction. I'm gonna quickly go over about myself. So basically, my name is MaPro. My real name is Matthias. I am 27 years old, so a little bit older than Oulie. Some call me Boomer, but I don't really like that a lot.
You are a boomer.
Maybe. I may identify as a Boomer. I don't know. What are you?
Gen
how's it
Z.
called?
I googled it up
okay.
with someone last time around. I'm Gen Z.
Jesus Christ. Whatever. So basically, my name is MaPro, 27 years old. I've been playing Counter-Strike since 2015. So basically, a little more than a year longer than Oulie, but basically we probably have the same experience, kinda, because everyone started at something low and then worked their way up. So I don't really want to think back about when I started Counter-Strike, because I played on a really shitty laptop. Couldn't do much 20 FPS gaming. Whoever played on a shitty laptop before Counter-Strike knows the struggle, so that was not good. Now it's better. I have a proper PC, proper FPS rate, everything is Gucci. How I got into Counter-Strike is a little weird, because I had one of my school friends who actually always played it, and he was just like, because we played some other games online and were just in team speak back then, he was just like, yeah, do you want to join? And I'm like, I have no fucking clue how this game works, but sure, I can. So he set that up for me, etc., etc. And I played with them. He had some teammates who were global and stuff. We mainly only played Office, and on Office I kind of developed the game style that the AUG and SG is OP, which of course it isn't. So that was a little bit different back then. But we played a lot of Office, and basically it took a while. I did some personal training here and there, but didn't really get the hang of it, because I was a PlayStation gamer before, controller. So, but over the time, watching pro players, pro games, actually led to me having kind of a passion for the game, because it is just something different. The hype, the energy, the crowd, everything. And then I got sucked into it and was like, yeah, I can try to get better at this game. It was hard. I never played mouse and keyboard before, so that especially was hard when you're always playing on computer, you know?
Yeah.
Not on computer, sorry, on controller and on PlayStation. But eventually I managed to do it. Went through different teams then, basically. Myself started out as an in-game leader, which for the ones who are not from Counter-Strike is the person who is responsible for the leading inside the server. So let's say we're playing 5v5 Counter-Strike. The IGL, which is the in-game leader, basically sets the tone of the team, says, hey guys, we're gonna go here, you're gonna go here, you're gonna go here, and we're gonna go to this bomb site A or B, we're gonna throw this utility, we're gonna execute whatever. Just simply explained what an IGL is. So I basically did that because my aim was not really good back then, and I thought to myself, yeah, like slowly I understood the game more than the other guys I played with did, but my aim was trash. I can be an IGL, I can lead people, I can just, I don't know, whatever, run in first or something, but I can tell them what to do so they can focus on their game. So that is eventually how I got into Counter-Strike, into in-game leading. Filled a lot of different roles down the line, same as Oulie. Have been IGL all the time. Have been an AWPer, now am an AWPer again. Have been a rifler with support elements. Have been a rifler with full lurker elements, which is like the guy who is always somewhere else, not with the team, trying to backstab the people. Meanwhile, the support player is actually throwing utility, grenades, everything to support his teammates. But basically done it all. Now I'm the IGL and the AWPer. Oulie in our team is the support player on a rifle, and that's how we got into our roles. Everyone did everything before. We both were coach, for example. Oulie was an analyst at some point in one of my teams.
I have been everywhere and nowhere. Like, you could really say we both have touched all the roles there are, or there have been, and there is at this point. From being on the sidelines as a coach to being an active player on any spot, on any role, on any position. We can pretty much play it. And we've seen it and we've experienced most of it.
Which also helps a lot when you want to teach someone and explain someone how a role works. Explain a role that you have never played yourself versus explain a role that you have played yourself. It's probably best if you can explain what you experienced instead of, hey, I read this online, you should do this. So that always works better.
Then my next question was gonna be, because you've now just explained in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes what your how you got into CS itself, but then how did you get into, as I wrote it in our notes, Team Counter-Strike, quote, Team Counter-Strike?
Basically, Team Counter-Strike for me has been that I watched pro games, that I liked how the dynamic wasn't there, and I basically decided with one of my mates, who I always in school was like, hey man, I play Counter-Strike, and like, I do this and this and this and that, and you can do this, and he was like, apparently super hyped for the game. I don't know why, but he really much liked it. So basically I explained him all the time in school how the game works, and he then went to pick up the game and we played. We were 2 people. He brought a friend, another friend, one more, who also played Counter-Strike, his friends. So we were basically 5 people, and that was my first proper team. We had one who was our AWPer. He played on a television with I think 30 FPS and had no good sound. Struggle was real back then, but that was when I got firstly introduced into Team Counter-Strike, and since then never really left it. Like, had a period where I was not with a team, but never was like, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna go full solo queue, because when I didn't play Team CS, I really didn't play much CS overall, to be honest. And just in general, like the team aspect. I mean, overall, touching on other hobbies as well. I'm in a football club as you can't really call it staff, but I'm doing the social media account and I'm the stadium speaker, so a little bit behind the scenes. And I like the team dynamic there as well, everyone working together on a goal. And that also transitions over to Counter-Strike, where everyone is just working together, trying to make the team work, because not only one person can make it work, everyone needs to work together. And yeah, that is basically, simply put, how I got into Team Counter-Strike. I'm guessing for you it was the same probably, but if not, you can elaborate on that, of course.
I mean, it's almost the same story. When in 2016 I was in school, a mate of mine was like, "Hey, have you heard about Counter-Strike?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been watching it, but I never actually played it at all." And then I really got into it with him, and actually slowly started developing more and more. And then I found this organization, Valkyria, on a certain site, a Team Finder site, if I remember correctly. And that's where I met you, pretty much.
The Team Finder site that is always broken, that is never showing any pictures and never showing any banners you upload.
Yes, yeah, that one.
which is still unbelievable, because I truly believe that the support for this website has just run out. That no one is actually like, hey, maybe we can fix that. I don't know. But the site is still here and it's still used a lot for lower level Counter-Strike, of course.
I think it's regularly used. Still, but I don't think it's being kept up to date, and some posts are really, really old. So by the point that you actually add someone, it could be months after that they sometimes might have checked the site again, and then for you it takes another time to respond, because I think I found in this case, we'll get onto Valkyria in a little bit, because MaPro is better at explaining that, because it was actually his founding of the organization that made it possible for us to meet. But I joined a certain team inside Valkyria, which made me meet MaPro, and that's really how we got going. But that site was kind of fucked up, so I was lucky actually to find it.
That is true. It's sometimes hard to find players, to find things, because there's no really good websites. I mean, nowadays we use Reddit, of course, the Reddit subreddit things with the Counter-Strike stuff, but otherwise it's a little bit lacking. So if everyone has an approach to how to fix that, maybe go do.
I mean, you could even plug our academy team here.
Can plug everything, yeah. That
Just
is true.
Plug the academy right there, because like, if it's hard for people to find a team, we are, if I can just explain a little bit, of course, it's like a little bit of a jump forward, because we're talking about the past and now suddenly about the now, and the future partially. Is me and MaPro have set up an academy team, And in this academy team, we want lower level players, level 1 to 3 face it, or what was it, Gold Nova 1 plus to Gold Nova 4 master ish. And we want to actually explain them the game, help them get into Team Counter-Strike, and explain them how the game works, and show them our tricks, and let them, feel the game instead of always playing solo queue. And we also want to do this podcast to show how our experience was, but we also want to show what the future brings. And the key with the academy is showing the newer people how it's, hard to get into Team Counter-Strike. Like we did it. We got into it really hard. I think, at least for me, I took like half a year to find an actual team where I eventually found Valkyria. But for more other people, it might even take longer. So we actually want to make it easier for newer people to get into Team Counter-Strike.
And actually, I always like to say, actually give something back to the Counter-Strike's community, because it is hard to find a proper team nowadays, I believe. It's like really hard. I see a lot of people always posting on Reddit, always trying to find a fitting roster, and it never really works because a lot of teams are not proper. A lot of teams are just, I don't know, not really built up good, don't really like follow something. They're just, let's play, and then we have one argument, yeah, you're kicked, you're out, and a lot of bullshit happening there, a lot of stupid things that happen inside the scene sometimes. So we kind of want to give an outlet, of course, for players, to promote younger players, and to give them basically an opportunity to shine, an opportunity to show their skill here, and have like-minded teammates, and just follow a long-term goal. That is basically it, because at certain points, Oulie and myself never had that. And coming back to Valkyria, now going back to that, to the past, Valkyria Esports was something that I started up because of lack of options. Like, the reason because I have been team captain in all my prior teams is because the lack of options. Because I didn't find the proper team to join in, because otherwise teams didn't really have the work ethic, or teams didn't really have the vibe, the overall team vibe together. They didn't understand each other really well, and I was always finding it really hard to find a proper team, so I just made it myself. And I mean, it worked to this day. Some worked better, some didn't work out that good, but I don't regret anything. And touching on Valkyria Esports, short version, has been something that I founded for one team. We had one team in the beginning. I was playing there, and basically after posting on TeamFind and stuff, we got more people who wanted to join. So I was like, we can do a second team. We can make it an academy team. And basically we got a third team because applications didn't stop. And I was like, we can take them, of course. They were already on our Discord server. We had a nice community vibe. So it went from there. And down the line, some teams were more active, some teams less. I would say we had overall around 8 teams that were good, that could be considered as solid teams. Some were not really that successful, some were more successful, but I think 8 is like a number that you could say, yeah, we had 8 good teams. So that is a lot, was a lot to manage. I wouldn't like to do it today again, just because of the time it takes and the time it took. It was not really something that favored me too much there. Still got to meet amazing people like Oulie, for example, and Matze also, who is one of our teammates, was also in Valkyria Esports. So I met a lot of good friends, and I'm very thankful for that. But overall management side was a lot, and I also didn't know how to do it because I just started off as a player wanting to play in a team, and then it grew. And it kind of outgrew where you can't really handle it anymore because you're one person. Then I tried to get people to help me, but not everyone had experience. So it was basically a place that fell down mainly, of course, because the toxicity was a big part, and kind of the more people joined, the more toxic the environment got, because a lot of people had egos, had issues with their egos, wanted to prove that they're better than the others, and a lot of people just left due to that. And then at the end of the day, it just kind of slowly died away just because of those reasons. And I also lost motivation to keep a project alive, which is not really working anymore because of negative people, because of somewhat bad reputation that it got at the end. So that was really hard. Maybe today we could pull it off. Also, Uli has experience in managing those things. I have learned my things and know more things nowadays. But back then it was sadly not the case. But it was still good. What happened was still cool. We had, for example, an internal league where we played against each other with our teams. We had someone who casted our games here and then on Twitch. We had community events, so it was nice. For the time that it was nice. Excluding the toxic part. But otherwise it was really good, and I believe it was a foundation for many things that have been following in Uli's and mine Counter-Strike careers, basically.
I mean, yeah, for me, like I've been up and down in Valkyria, because I first joined a certain team inside the Valkyria league, inside the organization, where I joined as an AWPer. I got moved to the bench quite quickly after a little bit of friction with the team captain and some other reasonings behind it. Let's keep it at that. And then I asked MaPro, hey MaPro, do you have anything for me? Because I'm gonna get a little bit more into my own separate path that I had until we met up later again. Because we need to get the podcast slightly forward. Because the Valkyria story is completely true. It was a lot of fun. There were community events. The league was a lot of fun. And the toxicity made it bad in the end. But continuing on the story, is I moved out of that team after I got benched. Then I messaged MaPro, hey MaPro. After by that point I didn't know him. I only knew his name as in MaPro. I was like, hey, do you have anything for me? Because I've been benched out of green and I'm not willing to sit down here and do nothing. And be, well, I wouldn't say disrespected, but that's how it felt. And MaPro was like, well, I mean, yeah, I guess you could be a coach or you could be an IGL for my academy team. And that's really how we got in contact, and we slowly started building up a good friendship that obviously still lasts until today, because otherwise we wouldn't sit here together. I mean, virtually together. Because we don't sit physically next to each other, at least not that I can see. But I moved into the, as the main team was called Valkyria Blue, I moved into the coaching role. That was my first coaching role. And MaPro noticed in me that I was a great analyzer of demos. A lot of, how do you say, theory crafting and explaining strategies and showing tactics. And that's how I really got into coaching. And I followed that up by becoming the coach and the IGL, so the in-game leader / team captain of the academy team, whereof I moved into the captain role and built up a team around me that actually eventually became better than the main team. And we slowly moved out to a different organization, as Valkyria was, as MaPro said before, slowly falling apart because of many different reasons. I then moved into a captain role for that new team for about 6-7 months, where afterwards I actually moved out of the team as I got busy with exams, a lot of schoolwork, working in general in different separate jobs that I had next to school, because obviously man needs to make money, and that's how I did it, and I just didn't have time for Counter-Strike anymore by that point. Following that, after a month or 4 or 5, I would say, I moved back into Counter-Strike, and I almost instantly messaged back into MaPro, I think. I don't think I had anything major in between. I was coaching for different separate organizations here and there in the little break, but it wasn't anything too major. Nothing really happened. And I think that's when I messaged you back. But by that point, you've already gone through a lot as well.
Yeah, we always find a way back together somehow, which is very interesting. Me being in other teams, you being in other teams, and at the end of the day, we always find back together. Then you ended up being a coach again, then you played with us, then it dissolved again, and now we're back together again. It's like weird, super weird. Apparently, Faith has decided that we should play Counter-Strike together. I don't know.
I mean,
I guess.
looking from how it went, I guess so, because if we go slightly more in depth, our styles are the same. Captain-wise, so IGLing-wise, we are quite the same when it comes to how we play the game, how we want our teams to play the game. But also when one is coach and the other is IGL, the connection's always there. There's always a good working friendship, working relationship, if you will. And this vibe is always good. And I think with Matze, as mentioned before, we are really, well, I wouldn't say inseparable, because as said before, we've gone separate ways a couple of times. But we always find a way back together. And in this case, we've already been back together again since October. September, yes. No, June last year. July last year. 1607. Yeah, I have our site on. Yeah. I have our site open.
Is true. That is true.
But no, you've, after the Valkyria, the original Valkyria dissolved, where did you go to?
Basically, afterwards, I went. Actually, have to check now. I really don't know off my head. I believe I know it, but I'm not sure. But I have it in 1 second. Yeah, basically before Valkyria ended, or like before it was even created, sorry. Before it was created, I played in a team that was called Team Coronado. Pretty cringy name. If you see the logo, it's even more cringe. It's a tornado with corn inside. So it's a Coronado. Don't ask. Basically went back to that name after basically like in July 2021. I left as an active player, and I became a coach in one of Valkyria's leftover teams, and that was actually pretty successful. Later on, I had a second stint with Valkyria. Basically, after the community slowly died away, it was still active, and that was actually where you came in, partly as a coach at certain times.
Oh,
but
yeah.
then also due to a lot of time issues, this roster, and we also had an academy and junior project there, so 3 rosters. We basically ended Valkyria as an organization back then, and I and Albert, actually Heis,
Yes.
who is a former player of Valkyria and played with me and also played with you at certain points, and you were coaching me and him.
Yes.
Me and him played in Team Coronado. We just did some Face It lower level, some Golden Overplay with new accounts, you know, just because everyone stopped playing for a while, and we were like, yeah, let's slowly get back into it. And then after Team Coronado, basically we left that because of internal struggles in the team. And after that, I decided with Matze, I believe, if I'm sure, that I created Evening Squad, which is our team that we are still under playing today, which was basically just a team. Let's play some Face It together with people that we know, that we like. We didn't really have like a set roster. You were here, some other people were here, Matze was here, I was here. Sometimes people play, sometimes they don't. Nobody was forced to play because it was not that serious. It was just playing Face It. We had a little bit of strategy, just some setups, but nothing like too in-depth. Like we didn't have any protocols as we now do. When this happens, what do we now? What do we then? You know, we didn't have anything like that. We just played, basically.
Yeah, I think the original Evening Squad that I joined later on, the first Evening Squad is as if we put it into an era, this was like Evening Squad 1.0, if you will. In this Evening Squad 1.0, it was the bare minimum of a just set up team where there were defaults. There was like a sort of execute with some default nades that everyone knows, like the bare minimum. And I noticed in this time that I actually played. I had been coaching by this point for like over 1 year, I would say, excluding breaks. And I noticed that I wanted to play again, and this is where I actually got back into the playing side of the game, and where I could actually use my utility knowledge that I had learned over the past year as a coach. And it actually helped me a lot that there was always a rotation of players. It was never, you were never forced to play, and when you weren't there, you didn't feel obliged to play because there was always someone else to step up or stand in, if you will. So it was actually like, I think it was like at its highest peak, it was like a 12-man roster that everyone rotated around in.
Something like that, yeah. I believe we had like at least 7 people that were always here, and then some more who were sometimes here. So, of course, we had a lot of players. We played a lot back then. But basically, what has been happening towards the end of the team was like, I felt myself and other players that were taking the game more serious, that it was kind of bad that we always had rotating players, because changing play styles, sometimes chemistry not really working together. So that was a really big downside of that project. And basically, I remember we went into a break because people were having summer breaks or something, and vacation and everything. And afterwards, we never really got into the mood to play again. Nobody really had the drive anymore. So it kind of died away, and it kind of was inactive. And that was the time where it was like, okay, nobody's been playing for weeks now. I don't know. It's like, this is weird. People still on vacation, and some are back but don't really feel it now. So I made like the drastic decision to actually, besides that, coach a lower level team, which brings us to the next chapter, which we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, just before you go on, with low level, we actually mean low level. Like, if people know Face It a little bit, like 500 elo level 1.
Basically level 1 to 10. There's the range, and level 1 is absolute beginner, and we were in the absolute beginner category there, and I tried to coach them. But I will get into this really, really quickly. We will hear a little trailer from our sponsor, which is Rogue Energy. Follow them on Twitter at the Rogue Energy. They sponsor this podcast, and we also have a little discount code, so you can save yourself a little bit of money if you order at rogueenergy.com. If you ever are in need of a really, really good energy drink, if you feel like you want to play your games, but you're sometimes exhausted, but you really want to play, you really want to perform, Rogue Energy has you covered. Use our code MaPro Oulie cast for a 10% discount on your next order. So we're really quickly going to listen into what our sponsor has to say, or watch the trailer. And actually, if you're watching or listening to this podcast on YouTube, you will get to see the video. On Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, you will only, of course, hear the audio. So maybe go over to YouTube and check that out as well. So we will be right back. All right, and we are back. Thank you once again to Rogue Energy for sponsoring and giving us this little 10% discount code. Maybe use it on your next order. Save some money. Hard times, it's always good to save some money here and there. So check out their website, really good energy drinks, and follow them on Twitter, of course. Now, coming back to what we talked before, our break, the 5th dimension journey, as you put it into our document. What is your, what is, or let me actually start off like this. We talked about players being low level. So I, alone, without all the other guys, basically joined as a coach. And it was like, okay, I can coach like 2 to 3 times. I can teach them setups. I can teach them the game a little bit. I can teach them how to play. So I did that. But then later on realized that the gap between me and the other players was too high. So for them to actually be at the level where I would be like, this is actually worth for me coaching, would take a while. And not to flame any of the players, because they're just as good as they are at the moment. So they improved a little bit, of course, but it was hard to get them to the level where I wanted them to. So from beginning, it was doomed to fail, but still had some positive impacts there, had some positive things to go about. Didn't spend as much time there because overall it just didn't work out at the end. And they also had a very unstable roster, which basically led to me becoming a coach, transitioning from a coach to the in-game leader, active player on the rifle back then taking over the AWP role because the AWPer left the team, basically having empty roster spots and bringing in Matze at the time, bringing in Robin, aka Heat Pro, who was also playing in the original evening squad, playing in Luca, or username I think is Luca7970 or something, bringing him in as well, and then eventually getting Oulie as our coach, because I thought that I could need a coach at the time. So that is, in short, the Fifth Dimension story, at least the beginning. And Oulie can tell you a little bit more about how it felt for him, what happened, because later on, it actually was that Oulie transitioned, like I did, from a coaching role into a player role. So maybe gives us some insights on that one.
It was actually really funny because I by this point I had been, after the evening squad, I obviously didn't play Counter-Strike as much anymore. But I did have the flame of competitive Counter-Strike with a team, because in all fairness, my solo queue, never doing it again. And never doing it again. Never.
Man,
because
solo queue is
my
the
aim
best
is just...
thing ever, man.
No, it isn't. Maybe in Face it is doable.
No, it's worse.
Because you actually have... I mean... Can't even be asked at this point, to be fair.
Thank you, Well, for adding short matchmaking, because there,
yes,
solo queue is somewhat doable. On the other modes, matchmaking and normal face it, please avoid.
Thanks for.
If you actually want to stay sane, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe just don't play solo queue. Okay. So no, the fun fact is, after evening squad, I left CS:GO around a little bit. I did play a little bit, but I never really went full in. But I still had the flame of, I want to play competitive team Counter-Strike. I saw in my Twitter feed, because MaPro loves tweeting everything. You will see it on our Twitter.
Check out my Twitter at MaPro. Check out the podcast Twitter at MaPro Ouliecast, and check out our Counter-Strike team at Evening Squad CS. Thank you.
And check at Oulie Gaming, as that's my Twitter. Just want to plug that. But we love tweeting. MaPro does a lot of tweeting. He's great at graphical design and that stuff. He always does that. So if you see great graphical design, throw it at him, because he deserves it. He's been doing a lot behind the scenes. So no, I saw the tweet of MaPro on his personal account that he had joined this Fifth Dimension, and I was like, well, this looks interesting. I obviously didn't know anything. So I said, hey MaPro, in DMs, hey MaPro, mate, I see you've joined this organization. What's it all about? Do you need a coach or maybe a player? And so we went on a talk, and MaPro at first was joking around. He was like, a coach? We don't need a coach. I think we're way too good for that. I was like, well, obviously, but, you know, is there anything I can do? And then we got into contact. We actually went into a call after I think we hadn't spoke for like a couple of months. So we actually, you know, went into a call again. And it was actually surprisingly a lot of fun. It was like we just kept talking all those 4 or 5 months we didn't speak. And I met the new players, and I said to MaPro, hey, do you have a demo for me to watch so I can do a little bit of analyzing before I actually get with the team? Because I love doing that as a coach. I love to analyze it and then actually see, okay, this player plays there, this player plays there, this is their tendencies and that kind of stuff. And what I quickly noticed when I watched the 3D view, so on the player, because you have 2D, that's on a map, and you have a 3D, which is on the player and inside the player, as they see it when they're playing. And I noticed a significant skill decrease from what MaPro was doing at the old evening squad and before. And as said before, no disrespect intended anywhere in this podcast at all, but it was honestly kind of bad. And me and MaPro actually talked about it for quite a while, about what we wanted to do and how the team looked by that point when I joined. And we noticed that it might be better to just give it a week or 3, see if they actually improve, give it a month, see if they improve, and if they don't, if it is obvious they don't, then we might leave with the players we already have and actually continue with the 4 or the 3-man core of Matze, MaPro, and me.
And actually, if they improve to the pace that we need, because they improved, that is true, but we just need them to improve to a certain pace where we could be like, hey, this can work. We give them the time, because otherwise, as it turned out that they didn't improve as fast as we wanted them to, then it was automatically the decision to go separate ways, because our level was too high and they couldn't reach any level close to ours in any certain amount of time that is doable for us. So it was basically just a mutual decision to part ways. Better for both. Better for them to improve on their level, and better for us to play on our level.
One thing we did notice was MaPro told me about this certain Thunder / aka Benny. Thunder aka Benny. And I was like, well, I don't know him, because by that point, after 1.5, 2 weeks of being in the team, because that's when we decided to mutually part ways, I never spoke to him. The first time I spoke to him was when we actually switched the teams back to Evening Squad. As we obviously returned from 5th Dimension to the Evening Squad 2.0 era. And Benny, I didn't know him, but if MaPro said that this guy had potential, then I am taking that onto the ship, and I'm gonna keep going with that, because I trust MaPro in his observations, knowing that we have a good amount of experience and teamwork, by the point that I do trust him blindly if he says this player has potential, this one has less, etc. So that was the 5th Dimension journey. By this point I'd been there for 1.5 to maybe maximum 2.5 weeks, and we moved back to Evening Squad 2.0, where we actually started off a lot more serious than the original Evening Squad 1.0, and a lot more advanced than the 5th Dimension start that MaPro had, because we actually had individually skilled players, smart players, and also tactical enough players that we could pull certain strategies off. We used most of the tactics and the defaults that we had from before, like when we first started Valkyria, when you first started Valkyria. And the experience we got, we changed it slightly. And we moved players into position. And we moved to the time we actually are now, like early or late 2022.
Exactly. That was where we then went back to Evening Squad, taking that name again. Because it was like, do we really start over with a new name? Because at the end of the day, we still had that name. Everyone liked it because it is a simple name. It's like simply built. We play always in the evenings. We are Evening Squad. There's no deeper meaning behind it, and the simplicity of that is actually fucking hilarious and actually really nice. Everyone liked the name, and we were like, yeah, we can keep that, of course. We had the logo and everything. As you now see on our website, eveningsquad.com, or on our Twitter at eveningsquadcs. All the media assets are the ones that we used before. Of course, some a little bit more refined nowadays than back in the days. But basically, we went back there. It was me, Matze, and Oulie. And then we had Benny, who was from 5th Dimension, who I kind of took the burden on, because I said that he was skilled. And he was kind of the question mark, because the others didn't know him that good, and if he can hang. But eventually he surprised everyone and actually is a really good player with a lot of impact. And then we had Luca, who has been a stand-in player in Evening Squad 1.0 before, and we just asked him if he wants to play again. So now he is playing with us. Robin, who we touched on before, also is still around. Is part of our academy team at the moment, and as we look to build that team up, we will see who else joins this team and how far they can go. So I'm very excited for that, of course. And not to forget, of course, as we have 6 players in our main roster, because often you have the problem that players are not available, someone is on vacation, someone needs to go early to sleep or leave early, and therefore we have a 6 can't talk anymore. Therefore we have a 6th player. There it is. and his name is Raphael. His in-game name is Robineo, and he's from Germany too. And he's a really good player. He's really skilled. Should be like level 5 or level 4. 4, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's high 4 at the point of
Something
speaking,
there.
if I remember.
So he's not a stand-in where you're like, okay, we have to stand in. He's not really that good. He is equally as good as the others when it comes to individual skill. And vibing, also very great with him. Very great vibes. Just complements the team overall. Basically, everyone gets along together. And we're very happy to have him. Because it's always hard to be a 6th player. But we actually look to integrate him into the team and give him time on the server. Even if someone has to take one game less so he can play. Because in Valkyria we had the problem that the 6th guy always was the one that was called 2 minutes before the practice. Hey, one of the dudes is not showing, can you come? And then the 6th player's like, guys, I'm at the gym, I'm doing this and that, I'm cooking with my mom, I don't know. You didn't tell me before. And I really don't want that to happen again, so we look to integrate him into the team, and that has been working out really good so far.
Yeah, I would actually think so, because if you look at the pro teams, obviously we don't know what's going behind the scenes there. If we want to draw a line to a degree, but you can see certainly if you remember Bubsky and Astralis the last 4 years from like I would say 20, I think he came in 2019, 2018. And he never really played in Astralis except the one time where they actually needed him because of the breaks many players had. But then it's like a waste of talent. And recently we came across that Rafael, or as I like to call him, Raffaello, because I have a little bit of, no, I won't say I have a little bit of Italian, but I like to call him that way. So what I did notice is that we actually did want to give Raphael the time, because we notice the skill and the potential he has, and because we sometimes do have a accidental or moment where a teammate might be gone for a certain reason, private reasons or whatever, it could be anything. That Raphael's always there. He's always listening with our theory sessions we do in practices, and he's always actively wanting to play, and that's what you don't really see with a lot of stand-ins, because they're always like getting called upon, like you said it before, where it is like, oh mate, you need to come quickly. Rafael's always there, and that's I think why we've also, because me and MaPro are really the ones that talk a lot about the team, get everything set up for everyone, to the point where we decided together like, hey, we might just want to do it this way so Rafael gets his time, because he always shows up and he deserves more time than he does now. And following that, after our foundation was already laid, and Rafael joining the team, Benny being the not so much question mark anymore, because by this point, he's been really consistent all along. If we look at where we are now in this present day, you have 5 players where 3 of them are really experienced. That's Mats, me, and MaPro. Where 2 of them have been coaching, that's me and MaPro, and where 3 of them have also been iGenning, that's all 3 of us. And where you have Luca, you could say the consistent star, always frags out, always does a great job, and where he always is on the shift button, he always shifts, no matter if you're in retakes, in deathmatch, or if you're in competitive or matchmaking, it doesn't matter, he shifts. So,
like last time we played an Inferno match and he won an insane clutch. Literally like defused the last millisecond because he shifted all the way, surprising the enemy
and surprising us.
I personally, I mean, I have a lot of patience in Counter-Strike, but I don't have that much amount of patience. So, but it's a nice add to the team overall. So I'm not complaining or anything.
So you have MaPro as the captain, the IGL. You have Matze as the rifler, the default rifler, I would say. Is supposed to be star rifler. I guess you could say he is, but he's slightly inconsistent here and there up until now. And we're working on it as a team. And Benny has been the consistent factor. I am the consistent factor too. Always there about. I'm a support as well. I do a lot of util. And MaPro is also the AWPer and the support AWPer. So he does util with me. And recently we started working into like a new system we want to do as of the new year, as we've now pretty much gone to the point where we want to talk a little bit about the future. And MaPro, if you want to take that up.
Yeah, so basically what we did, what everyone in Counter-Strike when they want to improve probably looks at their Leatify. You play a game of Counter-Strike, faces, matchmaking, whatever. You have your accounts linked on Leatify. Some seconds or some minutes after the game, boom, message, your Leatify ranking, whatever, is up. You have your scoreboard. You have how much utility damage did you do, kills, etc., etc. You have a lot of parameters where you can change, where you can look at if you improve or not over the time. And basically, we were like, we kind of need something where we can actually see our improvement. I mean, win rate, I don't know, but personally, like not overall as a team. Of course, overall team success is number one, and second should be personal growth. How do we improve ourselves? How do we measure that? And then basically we looked at Leatify always, and then we came up with the idea, and Oulie made that in a spreadsheet where it's like all the important things for all the important and like all the important things like KD, KDR or ADR, whatever, and then also we highlighted the ones that are important for our role as an AWPer, as a support player, as a lurker. You might have different parameters that are important to judge your improvement than is as the entry fragger does. The entry fragger shouldn't really be looked at his kills because he dies a lot. Meanwhile, a support player shouldn't die that much because he's in the back supporting. So there's different dynamics. We took some time until we worked that out, and now we have a really nice spreadsheet where we always put in the matches that we played. Oulie does it after the game, and we can always check and then also make like little nice diagrams and things where we actually visualize if someone improved or not. So that is how we personally, like overall as a team, approach that, and it's really not common, to be honest, because I never saw that in another team before, that we did it into this detail, but it makes sense because sometimes on Leatify when I check, I'm like, yeah, okay, but what stats do I really need to look at? Like, I'm an AWPer, so sometimes I die, so I shouldn't really be judged off the kills all the time because sometimes I do risky plays, whatever. So we talked about this a long time, and then we actually managed to put and highlight the things that are important for each role. And I think that really helps me, that really helps the others, our players, and overall the team to judge if we are improving or not. So that is, in short version, our spreadsheet that we worked out.
We also have a little bit of a thing from Matze. Matze has been doing a lot with psychological things. In general, I won't go into depth because I'm not that good in the stuff he does, but he also made a certain plan where we made goals for ourselves for the first 20 matches that are on the spreadsheet, and you have the 20 last matches from 2022, which I put in the spreadsheet. We in this little thing from Matze, we put in our goals specifically, like a SMART idea: specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time. What's it called? Time, like inside a time frame. There you go. I can even translate it from Dutch to English. Unbelievable scenes. Where we put in our goals, which we want to achieve inside those 20 games. We can check it through the spreadsheet, and that way we can see if we improve, if we were actually stable, or if we actually maybe downgraded. Because obviously, if you have harder opponents, it becomes harder to get your goals. But for the future of this team, we are working with a specific method now, how we practice. We don't want to overload ourselves, but we do still want to play regularly, and a lot to a degree as well. A lot of other teams might play more than we do, but I feel like the time we do put in the game is always quality time. We always make sure we put the time in the game that is useful. The time we put in the game is useful, and every time we talk with the team after a game, we're like, hey guys, what went good, what went wrong, what should we work on in the next couple of games? And obviously in the heat of the moment, because sometimes people that play Counter-Strike as a team might know this, when you're in the middle of a round or in the buy time, the freeze time, should I say, because it's not Valorant, am I right? people start shouting at each other like, "Oh, you did this wrong, did this wrong." We never do that anymore. We started to stop that because we know how irritated people can be, and then people play worse. So we always do the little after match talks, and that's how we really approach the game by now with Evening Squad 2.0 era. And so far it's been a good time. Personally, I was not kind of the good aim guy, if I can speak for myself. And I've gone up in the aim, I've gone up in all departments. Consistency has been better, ADR has been better. The way I play, the movement has been better. Everything has gone up with this team because I trust my teammates. I work together with MaPro as a behind-the-scenes management for the team, if you will. And we're working on loads of great stuff, and that's also why this podcast came around, because we want to show what we do. We want to talk about our experiences with the team. We want to talk about esports. And we also want to discuss everything that happens that we can, find out what we find interesting. And so after this episode, because we slowly need to end it here after 57 minutes in my recording, according to my recording at least.
I remember when we said we might make this.
Yeah. So in the notes for everyone that's listening, in the notes at first when I was like making the little notes up, because that's what I do for the podcast. I make all the notes. I do a little bit of background research. I asked MaPro, hey, how long do you want the first episode to be? Because, people also want to do stuff with their day. And he said, let's go for 20 to 30 minutes. I already upped it to 30 to 40 minutes because I knew it was going to go out. And by now, excluding the editing that MaPro still needs to do with different stuff, with the intro and the outro songs, etc., you've already got 57 minutes, let alone all the extras and stuff that comes around. So if I'm allowed to close it off here, because MaPro's done the intro and did the Rogue Energy sponsorship, I will close it off here. We've talked a little bit about ourselves. We've talked a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we got into Counter-Strike in general, how we went into Team Counter-Strike, how we met each other in this Valkyria organization, how we then went our separate ways again, came back to Evening Squad 1.0, the challenges we've had in Fifth Dimension, and then once again how we play as a team now, what we want to achieve, and how we are working on it from now on. Today is the 5th of January, 4:51 p.m., or if you're not American, 16:51 in the afternoon. And I want to thank you all for listening, and have a great day. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. See you soon on the, hopefully very soon, next episode of the MaPro and Oulie podcast.